last will be later, and then we'll hand out the quizzes that you have to identify, that last one. Now, whose theme was that? Roy Rogers. There, give that guy a cigar. Yeah. And, so you had Gene Autry, you had them all in there. But, okay, well, listen. Huh? And the Sons of the Pioneers. Oh, yeah. Sheesh. Did Lash LaRue have anything? I don't know. Whip it? Yeah. Anyway, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. I just met this guy here a while back, and I went to the Sunrise service over at Orange, it's called Orange Lutheran, I guess, or whatever, the corral over there. Orange Park Acres. His home is over there. And anyway, when I heard him speak, and he probably won't go into that today, but he's an expert on prophecy and so forth. But we're really interested in his personal story, and I'm interested in hearing it. And the reason being is that when he finished over there at the Easter service, 4 horses came forward. So I figured this guy knows what he's talking about. Come on up, Larry Day. Yeah, I don't know much about how this works. Want me to put it on here? Let's set up. There you go, just clip it. All right, thanks.
All right. Welcome. Yay! I told my wife that I've been asked to give my testimony, and she said, "What for?" I asked her to come and sit with me while I gave it, and she said, "I've heard it." But as I look out there at the sea of gray hair, I feel comfortable. I see a lot of guys I've already known, I've given my testimony to, and most of them know me, so it's not really a big surprise. And I don't have a whole lot to say, although I do say a lot. I can't say that I'm the most exciting guy in the world, but I work on it. We all wear different hats, don't we? In our lives. And I look across at that gray hair, and I know you've been through a lot. In fact, I'm going to have to get my glasses. Show you how much we've been through. I'm going to have to read some of it too. This is my preaching hat. And I'd love to preach, but I was asked not to. They said, "Larry, what we're interested in is your life. But once a year, I'm 74 years old. Once a year, I get to go out and preach, and this is my preaching hat. And I preach a cowboy church. That means I try to elevate our experience with God like a cowboy does with his horse. He's the master of his horse, and his horse knows it through cues. And God speaks to us through cues, just like we speak to our horses. And so that's what this hat's all about. I get to wear it once a year. This hat's really interesting because this is a cowboy hat. This is the one where you're actually out there riding the range. I compete actually right here in Anaheim Hills off Knoll Ranch Road every Sunday. And I can still sit a horse. Now, I'm not saying how long that's going to be, but up until last Sunday, I still seat a horse. I've got 3 of them in my backyard. And, just like our relationships with animals, we have relationships with people, and I guess that's what I'm going to be talking about, because those are the stages of life we go through, are the relationships that we've had. And so as a cowboy, you're a working man. You're taking orders instead of giving them. As a cowboy, you've got to see things, and they got to be natural. there's a job to be done, you got to see it. And that's what a cowboy learns to do. And they call it the cowboy way. And so the way of the cowboy, I give out Bibles. And they're called cowboy Bibles on the church, cowboy church that I give on Easter Sunday. Gives you an idea of what the relationship with God should be. Now, this is another hat that I see a lot of people out there with. This is the, anybody recognize this by Stetson? It's called the rancher. The rancher is the man that owns the establishment. He's the authoritarian figure. He's the guy that gives the orders. He's the guy that doesn't do all the work. He's the one that might have raised 3 sons and had to be the dictator and order of them, right? He's the master of the ranch. He's Kevin Costner in Yellowstone. And I get to wear this hat a little bit. I was a hospital administrator. I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own animal hospital. I've been in many, many experiences where I was the leader and the authoritarian. But now I'm 74. So things have changed. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you JOG. This is where the hats end. I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm not just an ordinary guy. I'm a little bit below ordinary. I grew up, well, first of all, I was born right here in Santa Monica in 1948. Now, do y'all know what happened in 1948? Probably about May 15th. Israel became a nation, didn't it? And the Bible says that that nation probably won't pass away lest they see the second coming of the Son of Man. The Bible says in Psalms 20 that he says that a generation is approximately 70 years or maybe 80 if you're being good. So I'm 74, looking forward to that time coming. But a lot of things happened back in 1948, and Santa Monica was one of them. The Cold War wasn't far behind. My father was an engineer for Douglas Aircraft. Douglas Aircraft soon after was purchased by McDonnell Douglas. Years after that, they become Boeing. So my dad came out of the war, World War II, Santa Monica. We lived in Venice, lived on the canals right there in Venice. And I was born at St. John's, and we were Catholic. My father from Blackwater, Missouri, was a Catholic boy, Roman Catholic. He married my mama, Rosemary, who was a Southern Baptist. Now, I don't know if y'all know it, but back in the Missouri and down south ways, the Catholics weren't exactly the most exciting religion to be in if you're a Southern Baptist. And so my mom and dad ran away, got married in Las Vegas, and now let's see, probably 1942. And I come up close after. I'm the oldest of 4 boys, and I have an older sister, Cheryl. And it wasn't too long after I was born, approximately 2 years, my father got his orders to move. He moved so that he could build the atomic bomb and build anti-missile missiles. And we moved to Las Cruces, New Mexico, the most beautiful agricultural valley, following the Rio Grande up to the left 20 miles with the Oregon Mountains. Looked like a set of pipe organs. In the evening, the mountains would turn purple. It was so beautiful. On the left, you'd look back up over the mesa from the bottom of this agricultural preserve, with the Rio Grande just winding through it. You could ride a horse for miles. But I didn't ride horses. When I was 9 years old, I delivered donuts. They're called spud nuts. We delivered donuts. I think I was 10 years old. I had resurrected myself up to the point where I could actually deliver circulars door to door. I don't know how much money it beat the 50 cents a week my dad was giving me. And from there, in New Mexico, you only had to be 13 years old to ride a motor scooter. If it was 8 horsepower or less, you could get a motor scooter. So my dream, of course, was to get myself a Cushman motor scooter and deliver newspapers. Now I'm a delivery man. My dad said, this will be really good for you. You're going to learn to collect money, honey. And if anybody's been in the money collection when you're about 12 or 13 years old, it ain't an easy thing. I'll never forget the time that I'd go up to Mom and Pop and try to collect that money for that newspaper. Well, you threw it in the grass and it got wet and I ain't paying. I'm 12 years old. I don't care. I'm paying. You got to deliver it right on the porch right there. So, okay. So we learned a lot about entrepreneurship when I was about 13. My daddy, after that, I had another dream, and I wanted to be a cowboy. I always wanted to be a cowboy because I grew up with Roy Rogers, and I never understood Batman, but Gene Autry, he was cool. I liked it when he bought the Angels. But anyway, I wanted to be a cowboy. That was nothing new back there. Crap, in New Mexico, on deer season come along in October, the whole town shut down almost. So Mom, Dad could go out and go take his sons deer hunting. Now, my dad was a sportsman. He loved sports. He'd have a plug in his ear, listening to transistor radio, watching the TV, at the same time talking to his buddies over a can of beer about who's winning in South Carolina. I never was really that sporty. I kind of let my dad down, but there were 3 brothers behind me. They did not. They were all great at baseball, great at football. I was a bench warmer. I took up Little League to please my pop, but I just couldn't hit them fly balls like my brothers could. I couldn't pitch. I always got right field. And when they did pitch it over to right field, I didn't do a real good job with it. So I wasn't really big on sports, but I was a seeker. I'm a searcher. I'm bred in this Catholic religion because you got to be a Catholic. If you're going to marry a Baptist, she's got to sign a contract because, I didn't know it then, but only Catholics are going to heaven. I didn't know that. And they taught that to us, and I thought, oh my gosh, my poor mother. And I tried to convert my neighborhood kids, my friends and everybody to be a Catholic like me, but they just wouldn't have anything to do with it. I had another friend try to convert me to Mormonism. I remember his name, Gary Romney, and they had a huge ranch outside of town. We used to take our horses and we'd ride up to the base of them mountains, and there was a wild horse herd. And it was just a wonderful thing. I rode a Mustang, so she was just like a billy goat. She could go through those rocks like a billy goat. And we would get between this herd. The herd was all paints and colored horses, Palominos, but he had this magnificent Palomino stallion that would get between us, stand between us and his herd of mares. It was the most beautiful thing. We'd ride up. We didn't drive. We'd ride up to the base of the mountains and we'd chase those wild horses. And I had the time of my life. I'm looking out here at these kids playing. I'm thinking, my God, I have memories. Not very good ones. I'm remembering less and less these days, but I had a good childhood. Chasing lizards. I used to hide lizards in my house. I had a frog ranch. We'd go out and collect toads, and we'd have a frog ranch outside. And one day my mom was pretty upset because she caught one of them gardener snakes that I had. chasing through the living room. She wasn't too happy, but I loved animals. I could sit there and watch a gopher just dig a hole. And I thought, that's amazing. But you know what? My curiosity wasn't quite as good when it came to school. I was a window looker. I could sit out there and just look out that window, and the nuns would be teaching and saying, pay attention, Larry. But I was a confused kid. My name was William Lawrence Day, and my mom called me Larry. Now, my grandpa's always calling me Little Billy. I'd go back and see my relatives, and they're all calling me Billy. And I'm going, who is Billy, Mom? And she said, well, your dad did that. Well, she did it to every one of my brothers, too. Named us, called us by our middle name. So, a little confusion growing up. But those Catholic schools, they weren't confused. They knew every knuckle, and my calves were all red every once in a while. And it's all because I was a window looker. And a lot of y'all think I'm cum laude, but I'm a C minus. I didn't bring home the best grades. I brought home. I was an average guy. I'm just an ordinary guy. And so C's. If I could get a C plus, I think my family ought to take me out to dinner or something. Because C minus was kind of my middle road. When I got out of grade school, and it was a miracle, I was an altar boy, and I wasn't good with Latin. In those days, you had to be a pretty good Latin Catholic boy. And the priest would look down at me. But my best friend, Carter, he was smart. I always hung around the smart guys and the big guys. I wasn't stupid. I was C minus, but I wasn't stupid. Because the big guys would save me. Every time I started to have a physical problem. Because, as a kid, you just walk into the classroom, you're looking around saying, I can take him, but I don't know about him. I better get a big friend. So, it was male-dominated era, I was a boy. We didn't come home until the sun went down. And even then, we tried to sneak out at night to chase frogs when it was midnight. I remember sleeping outside at the stars, just looking at the stars. No wonder I was a window looker. And I grew up pretty free, People not really telling you what to do. Things are changing now. Because I have 3 sons, and I know things had to change. We moved out to California because my dad was called back to Santa Monica. He had been to Kwajalein. He had been on all the islands working on these missiles. And now we're going to move back to Orange County. Now, as an altar boy, I've got to tell you, I wasn't good with Latin, but my heart screamed for God. I literally tried to tell everybody when I was a young kid that because I was told to become a Catholic so they could go to heaven with me. And I've never given up on God, even as a young child, even though I was just religious. So I would chase him. And then we moved to California, and I was only 15. I was telling you, Ira, that I moved to Westchester first, went to Airport Junior High School in my last 9th grade, half of my 9th grade. And then we moved to Orange County because they're building out the Huntington Beach plant here. Moved to the city of Orange, and my mama sold all my tack, my saddle, my halters, my bridles, because and I had to leave my horse behind, and I traded her in for a surfboard. I traded in all those lovely experiences just to chase girls. So that was my new time now. I'm 15, going on 16, and living here in Orange in the area of Villa Park. Graduated from Villa Park High School in 1966. And it was an interesting time. Of course, this is right pre-Vietnam. And I worked at the milk farm dairy. Do you remember when they used to have the little dairies, you drive-through dairies you could go into, buy a loaf of bread and get a half gallon of milk and some eggs? Well, I did that for years. And I'll never forget one of my friends, Jim Shaw. He died in Vietnam, but Jim, he'd always tell me about Jesus. He just kept telling me. I said, I know, I believe in Jesus. And he said, well, come here. And we'd go to this little church, they say, if anybody believes in Jesus, come on down. And I'd come down and I'd say, I believe in Jesus. I'm telling you, I have been saved more times than you can shake a fist at. Melody Land, I'd been saved at least 10 times. And I would go with these guys that tell me about, of course I believe in Jesus. He died on the cross to save me from sins. I understand that. But then I started going to Calvary Chapel. Holy cow. It's just something. It's something to know that God's in the sky, but it's another to know He's right here in front of your face. Amen? Holy cow. My life changed. It upside down, inside out. I remember one time my wife, she gathered up all my sons, and they said, leave your father alone. Just let him and his Bible be. I couldn't get my head out of that Bible. I'd gotten this Bible. It's the only Bible I ever had. It was a Catholic Bible. It had the 7 apocryphal books. And from serving my sister's wedding. She was only 18, but she didn't want to move to California, so she got married then and there. And she's going to stay in New Mexico. I served her wedding. I was the altar boy, and she gave us altar boys a Bible. And that was our gift. Of course, I never looked at it until that day Chuck Smith told me how important it was. And then I just couldn't get enough of it. Catholic Church always has retreats and things. They had a thing called Marriage Encounter. Anybody heard of that? Marriage Encounter. I love my wife. I started dating her when we were 15, 16 years old. I bought her father's car. It was my first car. It was a Model A, 1931 Model A, 5-window coupe. It's the only reason Tom Meiss likes me. And my daddy wouldn't let me have a hot rod. Every kid wants a hot rod. I said, let me at least put big tires on it. And the engine wouldn't pull those tires. I spent my life in auto shop trying to fix that thing, get it running. But life was so good then, And Jimmy kept saying, you gotta know Jesus. He died. He got shot, killed. Vietnam. Life went on. I remember my boss there, his wife got me all excited in spiritual things because I knew the Spirit was real. And so she got me down. She says, I know somebody. And we went to a medium where they had spiritual guides. Now, I skipped this. I went into the Air Force when I was 19. I got a 1A. If you make straight A's, you might have been able to stick with that 1Y, but they could see right through me. I was C-. And so they're gonna send me to the war. So I joined the Air Force. Am I speaking backwards? Before that, my wife and I, when we were kids, had a car accident up here in going to Big Bear. And my friend that I was following had a 74 Chevelle or something. And he just, 283, just in and out of that traffic. We're going uphill. I got my daddy's 1961 Volkswagen Bug. And I'm saying, don't worry about it, honey. I can downshift. But nothing I could do. Could hardly get up that highway when the other cars wouldn't let you in. 1953 Buick, guy drunk on his rear end, turned out of the intersection and just right into my face. I rolled 16 times, that Volkswagen. My wife, my girlfriend, her door sealed shut while mine sealed open. And it rolled over my head 16 times. They took me to the hospital there in San Gabriel or San Bernardino, and they called the priest in right away. He got there before my family did. They said he's not going to make it. And the priest gave me last rites. And my spirit was above the body. I'm looking down at those guys working on me. And I'm thinking, well, take care of the body. I'm kind of happy where I'm going. I mean, I felt comfortable, The Holy Spirit was leading Larry's spirit C-. I didn't think I was ever going to win nothing. And here I am in this peaceful condition. But that didn't last long. I woke up and I was in St. Joseph's Hospital with my wife over me saying, you'll be okay. But again, my search now is, why me? Why did he let me live? I was sucked back into that body and I'm only 16, 17 years old. And I'm going, now, he must have a plan for me. He must have something. And I go, what's he going to do with a C- guy? But he had a plan. We went to this marriage encounter thing, and we got married out of high school. I was 21 years old. We went to marriage encounter, and we're sitting there, and they have a technique. And it was actually just kind of writing love letters to each other. And the more you'd write your love letter, you'd see how the other person was affected and how they felt and how you felt. It was a combination of events. And on the last day, the priest and everybody, had us write a love letter to God. Have you done that lately? Holy moly. I'm sitting in my hotel room smoking a number, reading the Bible with my wife and saying, wow, writing a love letter to God. I can hardly hold back now. He was listening to me. He wanted to hear what Larry had to say. I wrote the most beautiful love letter. My wife didn't care. She wrote her own. And so all of a sudden, God's coming together for us. It's becoming more and more meaningful. What is love? I remember Carter, my old friend, when we were in grade school, coming home from junior high school, he turned to me and says, Larry, and we were best friends. He was smart. He had A's. He knew that Latin down. He was the chief altar boy. What a guy. And he said, Larry, he says, what would it mean? What does love mean to you? How much do you love your father? And I go, well, I love my dad. I think he's great. And he said, would you die for him? Would you die for your father because you loved him so much? I go, oh, wait, what are you talking about? My dad's supposed to die for me. Right? I mean, he's old, I'm young. And he says, that's what love is. And he taught me that when we were like 13, 12 years old. Love was worth dying for some. No greater love has any man than he would lay down his life for a friend. Later on in high school, my wife, just my girlfriend then, had left me. I come home from the military. I got a Dear John letter. Anybody ever get a Dear John letter? I thought I would have never joined if I thought I was going to get a Dear John letter. And I could read between those lines. And I may not have much to come home to. And so she ran off to Europe with a couple of girlfriends and trying to figure it out whether she wanted a C- or not. She said, there are A+ walking around. Why should I? Well, anyway, she did her experimenting. And I come home, and I was on my own date. And a friend of mine worked at the milk farm dairy from high school. His name was Ken. And I got him a double date. Carter's sister loved me, Marisa. And I got her to go with my friend Ken. Ken was a bright guy, intelligent, smart, but he had never had a date, didn't have all that, relationship with girls. So this was his first date. He's 18 years old. First date. We went to Corona Del Mar. I had my girlfriend. I was out there making out in the parking lot. And he took Marisa up on the shore, where all the rocks are, Pioneers Cove there. Or not Pioneer, but Pirates Cove. Where the jetties come in from Corona Del Mar into the bay. And poor Ken, he got all excited. I tried to convert Ken. He was an agnostic. How come smart people don't believe in God as easy as us C- folk? I don't understand that. It's so much easier for me to believe in a God that does the things he does, and yet I have these smart friends that walk all the way around it, and I don't know how long it takes them to put that final piece of the puzzle together. But anyway, Kenny was one of those, but I loved him dearly, and he had love in his heart. He jumped in that doggone water and never came out. Yeah, he was going to show off to Marisa. It's his first date. We're at Corona Del Mar, and he just, I got a flashlight, and I'm making out in my Volkswagen in the back seat with I don't know who it was, and can't remember her name. I think it was Barbara, and I got those lights, on me, and I said, "What's wrong, officer?" And they said, "Do you know Kenny?" And I said, "Well, of course. What's wrong?" "Well, he's passed." So that whole night, that was a big experience. That was people have highlights in their life. This was one of the lowlights in mine. But I'll never forget how much I tried to get him to believe in Jesus. Because Jim Shaw, we both worked at the milk farm dairy, and he had spent all his time trying to get me to church and up, to put Jesus in my heart. And my journey continued. Went to college, Santa Ana College. Loved dogs. In fact, that was my first date with Diane was dogs. I'd go over there and walk with her dog. Pretty soon, you're getting close when you get to take your own dog. So I had my dog. She had her dog. And we loved animals. Carter and I, when we were younger, we would say, "You're the smart one, so why don't you become a veterinarian and I'll be the rancher? I'll take care of the ranch and you bring all the animals back to health because you're an A student." I'll never forget, I think I had two boys. We traveled with our van, and we were going to go around the world, in our Ford van and see the world. And I had my sons with me, at least two of them at that time. And we went to Albuquerque to see Carter. He's my best friend. The only thing about best friends is I always worried that as soon as he'd meet my wife, he'd try to steal her away. I don't know what kind of best friend you'd have like that, but he had everything. The girls loved him. The parents loved him. And he was driving one of them flashy yellow Corvettes you see out in the parking lot here. The difference was, Paul, he was a drug dealer. He brought me into his adobe house.
Much different.
Yeah. I was wondering where Paul got that Corvette. I walked into his house and he started pointing out the most famous bullet holes. He had bullet holes all over this thing. And he says, he knows that how much I love him. He knows how much I would like to be him. I said, no, I'm here to tell you about Jesus, and you're showing me bullet holes. I love that man. He died at 40 of a heart attack working for UCLA. And I just hope in his final moments, because I never stopped talking about Jesus. Everybody thought I was crazy. But later on, I was going to Calvary Chapel and Sunlight Christian Center. Well, Sunlight Christian Center, I'll never forget. My son, Samuel, now I got 3 sons, Christian, James, and Samuel. I thought everybody named their kids after the Bible. But not necessary. Now they're Casey and Crispy. I don't know. But my son was born without a ureter. Wasn't connected to his kidney. And they caught it, with the ultrasound early in life. And so we had to go through at least 7 months of, hey, you know what, I better get, you only gave me 30 minutes and I have no idea. We got a lot to, okay, I got 40 more years. All right, here it goes. Bottom line. My search for Jesus continues. I'm 74, and I'm telling you, I wake up thinking about him, and I go to sleep thinking about him. There you go. See, you can just feel it well up inside you when you know how good God is. I've been up and I've been down, but I'm telling you, it's better up. I was born into God's kingdom as an up and outer because I was chasing him. Now, there's a lot of people that get saved down here, and I know it's great. That up here is so much better than down here. But I gave in to him through my chase and finding out who he was. I couldn't pinpoint which one of those dozens of times I went forward that actually connected. Because I believe there is a time a person gets saved. But I don't know exactly what time that was. But I'll tell you one thing. Once I knew I was saved, when you've been a Catholic and your only chance to get out of purgatory, see, they promise you can't go to heaven unless you're a Catholic, but then they tell you you can't get into heaven until you go through purgatory. I say, how long is that going to be? Oh, about 1,000 years. You got a lot of sin to burn through. So that was the only problem. I couldn't get there with a C-. I needed to have an A to get through, as a Catholic. I gave my life to God and started chasing him, and I found out he was where the Bible was. You show me a Bible-thumping church, and I'll show you the gate to salvation. And not only that, salvation's just the beginning. That's just the starting point. The rest of it is the search. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, I believe Jesus is coming soon. Really soon. But I don't think I'm going to quit searching. I'm going to keep chasing him. Whether I'm Little Bill or Little Larry. It don't make no difference to me. I'm chasing God. Thank you very much.
This C- guy had the largest veterinarian clinic in Orange County.
Oh, I didn't get to that.
And he had a veterinarian hat, but he doesn't have it on. Larry, thank you very much.
Yeah.